Professor, you can now go with video.
Okay. So, good evening, friends. Like all other dialogue sessions, we'll watch a video of Krishnaji. It's a short video, about 20 minutes, and then we can share our understanding with the participants. I was just mentioning before many people came that a suggestion had come from one of the participants that we can bring about a little change in the format of this session, which means there could be an introduction for about 5-7 minutes of the theme, and then Krishnaji's videos followed by 5 minutes of silence, and then we can begin our sharing our views and so on. But I was mentioning I don't feel the necessity of an introduction when we are hearing Krishnaji directly, so that part could be left out if we all agree to it. And secondly, about the silence part, I think a minute or two is all right, but 5 minutes long silence, uh, many people feel, and I also feel that it's not required. So keep this in your thought and let me know by the end of the session how would you like to this session to be organized from next to next week, and then we'll make changes accordingly. So I'm going to share video of Krishnaji, and give me a minute, please. Yes. Are you able to hear, see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Before we begin to bombard each other with a lot of questions and arguments, I wonder if you read in a newspaper. I don't generally read newspapers, I look at the headlines, that the world every year is spending $400 billion on armaments. That is $400,000 million. I don't know what that sum means, but that is what is being spent on trying to kill each other. I wonder, after reading such a statement, what will make human beings change? Yesterday, that gentleman over to my left put a question. He said, I've listened to you for so many years, listened to your talks, listened to your tapes and so on, and I am exactly where I started when I began. I think it would be important if we could go into that question rather seriously. Perhaps most of us are in that position. Perhaps. What will make a human being change very deeply? This has been a great problem for those people who are concerned with the transformation of man. What makes us change? If you put that question to yourself seriously and ask with all depth of your being, what will make you change? will an external event bring about a crisis in your life and that forces you to do some radical thinking change? A death in the family, an incident or an event or a happening that is devastating, psychologically as well as physically. Will that bring about deep change? Or must you go through great pain, great sorrow, great agony brought about by external events and forces a human being to alter his course, his drive, his direction, his selfishness, his limited, brutal thinking? We've had several wars. Most of us perhaps have lived through 2 wars, devastating wars. Millions have been killed. Think of the misery, the confusion, the enormous sorrow of those people who have had great losses, not only physical losses, but their sons destroyed. And apparently, superficial events, however great they are, doesn't seem to bring about a freedom. Say, this cannot happen again. You understand? So I'm asking, you as well have asked, this has been a question which we have considered many, many times. Will external events change man? That's one problem. That is, superficial events. And apparently, that has not changed man. Change in the sense we mean a real, deep transformation of the selfish drive identified with groups, nations, with beliefs, dogmas, religion, all the rest of it. And apparently, please follow this, apparently, some superficial event, like the death of one's husband, wife, children, does bring, through great pain and sorrow, a certain change in oneself. I do not know if you have not noticed. Does that mean we must depend on external events, death, war, somebody leaving you, and so on, so on, so on? External devastating events, will that change you? Which means that you must depend on outward things, which will then put you through great agony and suffering, and out of that you come. bringing about perhaps a deep mutation. Right? It seems to me, seems to us, that that's the most appalling thing to even to say it. That we must go through suffering to bring a change. That's inconceivable. But yet that's what happens, apparently. It's like a man who is driving a car rather carelessly, kills others and perhaps survives. And after that, he says, I'm going to be awfully careful how I drive. He's intelligent after the event. Is it possible to be intelligent before the event? You understand my question? Intelligent meaning not become more clever in this instinctual survival of selfishness, of the drive of desire, and so on, so on. But that intelligence that is born out of the perception that superficial events does not fundamentally change man, but that change must come totally inwardly, without any pressure, without any event. To perceive that is part of intelligence. Right? That I do not depend to perceive the truth that if I depend on outward pressure, outward events, which puts me through a great deal of sorrow and anxiety, I will either become cynical, bitter, or escape into some form of entertainment. So in that, there is no deep change. To see that is part of intelligence. The materialists, the communists, the totalitarian people say, change the outward events, then man changes. But that's been tried through millennia. Right? And apparently man has not changed. And also there is this this statement made by several gurus and teachers in the East and perhaps in the West, that surrender yourself. Then all your problems are solved. You again surrender to something outside, or surrender to something which you have created. You follow all this? I wonder if you understand. Please, are we understanding each other? This is very important. After the question of the gentleman yesterday, he said, I've listened to you for so many years, and I have not changed. I am where I started out. You know, to hear such a statement, you cry inwardly. You understand? I wonder how many of you cried inwardly. And what will change him or you or another? Is it, as we said, an external event, devastating, which brings about sorrow, and then that sorrow, if it is deep, it shatters everything that you have had. And then perhaps say, I can't live this anymore. See, again, depending on an external event. And external event can be vast. Wars, earthquakes, and so on, external events. Realizing that these religious, can I use the word exploiters? These religious exploiters, with your consent, I'm using that, says, give yourself over, surrender. You understand what the implications of surrender naturally to the Guru, to the man who says surrender. But inwardly, do you eliminate this drive, this self-centeredness, and so on, so on? You understand? Again, the same phenomenon, which is outward pressure, now you are exerting inward pressure to give it to somebody else. Have you understood this? Huh? Can we go on from there? Now, do you listen to all this? That outward pressure is not going to change, right? Inward, giving yourself over to a presence or a reality, to God, to this or to that, is still the desire which drives you to forget yourself. But the self is still there, only covered up. So, do you listen to these statements? Right? Or it doesn't mean anything at all. So perhaps the root of the matter lies there. Intellectually, verbally, you see reasonably, logically, what the statements we have made just now, very clear. Unless you want to change the words, you can change it. But the essence of it is that the outward pressure through sorrow and the inward pressure to escape from yourself, right? Which again is another form of. Do you listen to this? So that you see the truth of it, that under, whether it be pressure from outside or from inside, there is no change. To see that, to hear that, and see that fact, that is intelligence. You understand? So are you, forgive me for asking this question, are you who have listened to this morning, clearly exposed, logically, sanely, do you see the actuality of it, the truth of it, and therefore there is intelligence. Therefore, that intelligence is the denial of the outer or the inner. and therefore moving from where you are. Do you understand? Now, have you listened this morning, taken in, seriously gone into it, as we did just now, and see that pressure outward or inward, in different ways, in different forms, will not bring about the radical mutation? To hear that and see it is intelligence. Do you see it? Do you have that intelligence? Therefore, that intelligence acts before the event. So that man has not to go through sorrow. If you discover that it is something you follow, it's a divine gift. Sorry, use the word divine. It's a great, enormous gift. Because before the event, catastrophic, devastating event that brings sorrow, or any pressure, outward or inward, will not change man. When he realizes that, sees the truth of that, that intelligence is operating. Wherever it is, whether in your daily life, whether it is in an office, you follow all the time that's operating. Right?
Yes, Harshad bhai.
Thank you, Dubey. The first time when a person reads a book of Krishnamurti or listens to Krishnamurti, how does that person listen? That is very important. What is the state of the mind of the listener or a reader of a book? Because it seems to me, like as Krishna just said, that freedom is at the beginning. That means, are we really sensitive, honest? Do we have silence to listen? Because everything depends on how we read a book or how we listen to Krishnamurti or anybody else. So freedom is at the beginning. And it seems that if a person has not changed after many, many years of listening to Krishnamurti, that means that person has just accumulated the knowledge of Krishnamurti's teaching, but has not investigated in his own daily life activities. Because everything what Krishnamurti says, it is related to our daily life. How do we look? How do we listen? How do we speak? How do we do anything? So probably that people who are gathering the ideas from Krishnamurti after listening and then they don't have the space and silence to look at their own mind. Because I am speaking from my way, because when I first time read Krishnamurti, and then I said, oh, it is like that. And I begin to look, and I found that what Krishnamurti was saying was true. And once you really feel it, that what he says is true, then it begins to change your life. And then you can feel that some changes are happening. And then you read more, but more than reading or listening, one needs to be alone initially to look inward happening within us. So another thing which I like to say is that Krishnamurti seems to me a bit partial when he discards all gurus and devotion, because different people are different, made different. And some people are helped by a guru, and not all gurus are exploiting. There have been many gurus in the past. They have helped their disciples, and devotion also is necessary, because in Krishnamurti there is too much intellect is involved, but of course more than intellect, intelligence to see everything, what is happening clearly, that is required. But devotion is also all right if a person can create an image of Buddha or Krishnamurti or somebody, and then look at, and if that makes the mind silent even for few seconds, then it is good. Because after all, the strength comes from within us, whether we create an image or create an idea or whatever it is. But the true freedom is to look everything with a silent mind, without any reaction. That is the highest state. But one can begin with maybe an idea or an image and see whether it is helping. Yeah, and many times Krishna ji is saying, do you see that? But that seeing itself requires intelligence to see that the inward pressure or the outward pressure doesn't bring any transformation. To see that is also requires intelligence. And once a person sees that, then maybe the mind becomes silent and just doesn't do anything. Nothing is needed except watching whatever is happening. Thoughts and feelings are coming and going like that. So that is what comes to choiceless awareness. Okay, I have said enough. We will.
Thank you, Harshad. Yes, Dinesh ji.
Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yes. Yes.
Sir, first of all, I would like to congratulate Dubey sir, because he has brought a very important video in which Krishna ji has talked about the real essence of the things. This is very important video in my views, because here it opens many of the things which people don't understand in my views about the JK. First of all, what he said, why people don't change? The real change doesn't come because they don't work on their internal drives. I have been also pointing out in many times that this is my personal experience. Unless the psychological traits, parameters, and drives are addressed, nothing nothing important change can take place. This I have been already pointing out. And in this, JK has clearly pointed out that unless you change the inner drives, self-centered drives, unless you tackle these, there will not be any deeper change. Now, important thing is a simple observation of the tree without naming and terming. In my view, this is just a starting point. So also the understanding the conditioning. Even choiceless awareness can help you up to a limit. It can observe the thoughts and all that, and it can see the what are the distortion in the thoughts, whether it is right thinking or not, or etc. etc. But if the selfish drive, if the drives are from arising from your parameters, your traits are having more intensity, then what will happen? If you will observe it choicelessly, if the drive's intensity is more, then it will immediately create an internal pressure. Here he has clearly spoken about the outward pressure as well as internal pressure. So it will create an internal pressure. Now how you will tackle it? This internal pressure will definitely will create more problem. Even the choiceless awareness can tackle it to a particular limit only. Now, if we go further, then how do you tackle this internal this thing? One has to see what are his intentions, what are his drives, what is arising from this drive. He has to choicelessly, not only choicelessly aware about this, but he has to not go for the options for this. When we say choicelessly means he has to not opt for this. In my personal contact, there are so many people who read JK, but they involve themselves in the politics and all that. So if you are reading all the JK and still involved in the politics and this thing, means nothing can help you out. Even people say that thought is the main culprit. Even people say that conditioning is the main culprit. But this is just like wearing a coat. A person is wearing a coat with his choice. So whatever drives advise him, or whatever the drives he gets the message from his drives, accordingly he chooses and accordingly he behaves. So choice comes from the drive, and from that drive even the conditioning takes place, even your thoughts pattern of thoughts comes from that only. So even silence, now what will happen with silence? If you go for the quietness and silence, of course if you move from you first start from the quietness and then go for silence, then it will give you the extra energy. Yes, definitely it will give you the extra energy to tackle all these things. But if you don't tackle your intentions, you don't tackle your whatever you are interested in, if you don't see them, if you don't go for your drives, nothing serious will take place. This energy will immediately go for the tackling your towards your vested interest, towards your ill intentions and all that. So this is my personal experience also. Whenever I get the in my meditation and all this, whenever I get the energy, many times it goes in my idiosyncrasies. I should say, I should accept it that I am having many idiosyncrasies in which this energy goes. So I'm started becoming aware of this, and I'm trying to be choicelessly aware about this, as well as not to go for any options for this. But this happens. So this JK has clearly pointed out the essence of the thing, and this is very important video as far as my views. Thank you, sir. Any comments from Harshad, sir?
Yes. What you said about choiceless awareness being limited, I do not agree with that. Choiceless awareness is the real freedom in which there is no duality. There is no thinker which says that I like this, I want this. So just seeing is the real freedom. And from that freedom, we can look, listen, and in that there is no waste of energy. So that is what I have to say. Yeah.
Can I ask questions, sir, here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Are drives independent or dependent on choiceless awareness?
Say again.
Drives are dependent on choiceless awareness or independent of choiceless awareness?
Drives are choice, yes.
And they comes on their own?
They come from the unconscious, yeah, unconscious.
So,
yeah.
So when you are with the choiceless awareness, right? But when the drives comes and the intensity is more, then what will happen, sir? There will be internal
If
pressure.
this-
What he says?
Yeah. If this awareness is on, then it can see all these drives coming from the unconscious. And then when you see it, that becomes the action.
Yes, but
So like
if
Krishna
inward
ji
pressure
said,
is more, if inward
Huh?
pressure is more,
I think, Waghmare, the state of the mind in choiceless awareness can withstand all kinds of desires and pressures. It will not be affected because it's not seeking a result and it's not distracted by anything. It's totally, completely choiceless.
sir, can it tackle intentions?
There's nothing to be tackled in the. It is just seeing.
right.
If there are intentions, it's able to see that. That is all.
With due respect, I differ, sir. Anyway, we can move ahead now, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Durga ji.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Yeah, it's very long. I haven't attended these programs, sir. I've been missing actually. Yes, we just have to bring the salient features of that video we have heard. You know, I think basically he's speaking about two versions of it. You know, the outward pressure and the internal pressure. And initially, Krishnaji started with the major statement that is $400 billion that been spent on in armaments, in killing each other. So that itself is to sensitize us and see for, how people are killing each other and how we are living our lives. Actually, if you look at Krishnaji's videos, there's so much of compassion and so much of sensitivity. He tries to bring our notice into all these things. You know, he doesn't give us any, he doesn't give any path or any path to salvation or something. He again and again he tries to bring the world scenario before us to make us feel for these things, sensitize us. You know, that had been his effort almost all the videos. And when he started with that statement, and then he says, then he straight away gone into two aspects of the internal change, the outward pressure as well as the internal pressure. And outward pressure, when some kind of a sorrow, some kind of a tragedy happens in one's life, that makes one to sit and ponder, reflect, and then they some kind of a change happens in them. Maybe they become less self-centered. I feel the point to be noted here is self-centeredness. If we just look at our lives, how we lead our lives, all through all the time, 24/7, all year after year, our all efforts are revolve around our self-centeredness. It's about me, myself. Of course, Krishnaji never mentions so much about these things, but he brings the larger picture before us. So self-centeredness is the main issue here, which is a very hidden issue, which is a very prominent issue. And when some kind of a tragedy happens, when some kind of a catastrophe happens, when some kind of some tragedy hits you, then a person sits, pauses, and then he thinks for others. He becomes less self-centered and all those things. And he says that kind of a change is one kind of a change. And the other one is when you feel that, you feel you're lost or something, when you feel that some kind of a lacuna is happening in you, or for your personal gratification, you seek a guru. You go to a guru. But of course, he didn't go into all those points of why one goes to a guru. He says maybe when you are so shattered, when you are shattered and when you don't know how to resolve the situation, and you go to a guru. He says that is internally you surrender yourself to that guru. So, and Krishnaji's point here is we always try to move away from the situation. He said that's how he concluded the video, moving from where you are. Unless and until we face a situation, we feel it directly. We become the part of it, and allow the situation to, tell us, reveal its own colors. There can't be fundamental changes happening in anybody. He says, moving from where you are. All our efforts are to escape from ourselves, to go into some kind of a gratifications and all kind of self-centered activities. And that's how our life has been. So, and even listening to Krishnaji also has become some kind of a habit, some kind of a pattern. The person who has asked him, he says, I've been listening to you all this. Maybe listening to Krishnaji also has become a pattern. Because to listen to him has formed into such a deep-rooted habit, one can't stay without listening to him. So, but just by listening to him, is change is going to happen in one's life? Or when you face your reality, once you face your actuality, if you face your personal sorrows or your drives, your mechanical nature of yourself, and you be with it, how can there be a fundamental change in you? So I think, and at one point, Krishnaji says, when he heard that person asking him, he said he cried inwardly. That was very touching to me. Because maybe Krishnaji was referring to himself, maybe what had happened to all my teaching. I don't know, so it's my interpretation. So he says, we have become so mechanical, so self-centered, so many things happen all around us, but we never bothered about them. Only some catastrophe hits us, some sorrow hits us, then we wake up. Otherwise, nothing changes us. Just by listening to some videos or listening to Krishnaji's talks, is it going to bring any change in us? That's what he's saying. And with the passion and the intensity with which he presents his videos, it really makes us pause a little bit. And if that is not happening, then maybe we have made Krishnaji's videos also a habit. We had so used to it, and it's become like a staple food for us. So these are the questions he always leaves us with. And one more things I just would like to, if all the participants, if they can contribute, changes means what kind of changes one is expecting in them. Is it kind of some mutation, long-standing changes, or one is living with awareness and attention and observation and watchfulness? Maybe when all these are one is like that, maybe. Because the changes as mutation, we don't know what he's meaning. What does he mean by it? We don't know what does he mean by transformation either. And maybe he says transformation is nothing. You just be less self-centered and you just lend a helping hand to somebody. It's as simple as that. But we formed a big image of transformation, and we formed a big image of moksha, liberation, and all that. So time and again, his main focus is to bring us back to that, self-centeredness, the thought-structured world, and how mechanically we live our lives, and we never bothered to think about anything else. So these are the points that struck me, sir. I just wanted to pause here. Maybe after listening to other participants, I would like to contribute a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Durgaji. Yes, Mr. Dakshina Murthy, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening to all. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. This is an important video, and Krishnaji was in deep agony. He said he was crying inside, and this issue was discussed a number of times in other videos also. Why the humanity, despite their best efforts, despite their sincerity, despite their association with Krishnaji and listening intently to his talks, many people have left their careers to touch base with him, participated in his schools as teachers, etc., etc. But the radical transformation that Krishnaji was pointing out never happened to any of the human beings. It is a serious matter. All of us also should apply our mind and see why this transformation is not happening, despite Krishnaji talking for more than 60 years. In fact, he is one human being who talked the most and he wrote the most. among all human beings on planet Earth. Despite his sincere efforts, despite his love and affection, and despite his karuna, despite his compassion, not much has happened, though the people who were listening to him were also sincere and very serious. This needs tremendous attention. One point that comes to my mind is many people, they are understanding Krishnaji and his teachings at the intellectual level, at the thought level, but they are not giving the right kind of attention that needs to be given to understand the problems, the psychological problems of all of us, all human beings, seriously, and they are not able to penetrate into the problem so that the problem can be solved and a radical mutation can happen. I would like to elaborate this with an example like anger. We know we are all become angry. That has become very common these days. And in fact, people think that getting angry is a natural thing, but it is a psychological disorder. How to get rid of this anger? There we are not giving much thought. Now there are people who tell you many things about anger, and there are experts who tell you when you become angry, you count from 1 to 10 or 10 to 1, whatever. And also there are people getting a lot of knowledge about anger. If you get knowledge about anger, you will not be able to get rid of anger, because it is like pouring water in a bucket in order to empty the bucket. You never be able to do that. So we have to understand that is intelligence. Knowledge cannot help you to get rid of your psychological disorder called anger. That can happen only through understanding. And in the parlance of Krishnaji, number of times he mentioned to his audience, now have you understood anger? That means you will not become angry again. What he means is, if you really understand anger at the base level, at the root of your being, really you understand, you eliminate anger. Then you will never be angry at all. None of us could do that. That is the problem. Likewise, take another example like violence. All human beings are violent. They are extremely cruel. They are worse than animals. A lot of wars and so many atrocities that are happening, we are all aware. But we don't approach and try to understand what is violence. Instead, we have discovered a new ideal called non-violence. Here we have to understand carefully. Violence is a fact, and non-violence is a non-fact. It is an ideal. And we pursue the ideal without knowing what is violence and how to understand violence and how to eliminate violence. Violence is what is, and non-violence is what should be. So we are running away from what is and going to what should be. So you never succeed. For example, in our country also, we had non-violence. It is preached a lot. Ahimsa paramo dharma, they say. And our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, preached non-violence. You see, I have nothing against the father of the nation, but what I'm trying to say is, it has got imbibed in us that non-violence is a goal to be achieved without understanding what is violence. Then how will you change? That radical transformation that Krishnaji is talking about has to come at the psychological level. There are a number of psychological disorders in our consciousness, and these disorders are put there by human thought. We have to address that, we have to understand them, and we have to eliminate them. Then only a radical transformation can happen, as far as I understand. That's all from my side, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Murthy. I think we have to not to start with a premise that I'm reading Krishnamurti or I'm listening to him because I want to change. I think that will be a wrong way to approaching Krishnamurti's teachings. But if we understand ourselves that change could be a byproduct, which is not guaranteed. It could happen, it may not happen. On a similar discussion, Krishnaji told Rajesh Dalal, late Rajesh Dalal, that you can put a seed in the soil, provide water and sufficient sunlight and manure, but the seed needs the darkness of the soil before it can become a plant. Now that darkness has to be provided by us. And that can happen only by knowing ourselves. So I think we have all touched that. I entirely agree with all the statements made by all our participants so far. But I think it's important to pause and just see where we are and begin from there. Of course, the understanding has to start at the intellectual level, but it should not end there. It has to go deeper. Then only whatever happens. Yes, Mr. Rajendran. Please go
Good
ahead.
evening, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, I have been listening to this talk in this group for some time, and on many occasions, Shakti Kumar ji, Dubey ji, Harshad Parekh ji, and so many others, they were suggesting experimenting it, how to understand Krishnamurti. Just even in one talk, Harshad Parekh himself shared his own secret, how he was able to see what Krishnamurti was telling. He told he will, while reading the book of K for 5 minutes or 50 minutes, he will just, after reading for 5-10 minutes, he will just fold the book, and what he read from the book, he will test it out in his daily life. Experimenting. He used the word experimenting. I am using the word test it out because I like it. And if any of us go and search in jkrishnamurthy.org and search the word for test it out, there are 150 occasions Krishnaji has used the word test it out. Test it out, experimenting, investigating, do it, everything is same. Test it out is how to test it out. It is just observing in yourself what Krishnamurti says. So I found some 2 or 3 points here. In one talk, I'm just reading this verbatim, I'm just reading. The question was, the questionnaire. But I have the intention to apply myself, but there is something else that I don't know that prevents me to deeply see all these things and not intellectually only. Krishnaji answers within course. Then find out what is impeding you. Go into it. Don't say I don't know and then give it up. Find out what is the barrier. Is it laziness? Is it acceptance of things as they are? Not to be disturbed? Sir, go into it, sir. Test it out, break down, cry, do something to find out. At the end of it, don't say I have listened to you for 20 years or 52 years and I have not changed it. It is not my fault. It is your fault. Don't put the blame on me. It is on 26th of July 1979, Sahanan. And another one more video is there. So here Krishnaji says, you can test this out without much elaborate practice, effort, and all that nonsense. You can just do it. I am quoting only Krishnamurti. Now you have to test it. You have to do it. Not merely everlastingly listen and not do. That is like plowing a field and never sowing. The quote ends. This is Krishnaji in same Sanan in 1979. And there is another 1 minute. So someone was asking how to understand all this. So Krishnaji is telling, I am quoting Krishnaji again. You understand all this unless you test this, test it, go into it, find out for yourself. So how to understand what Krishnamurti says? What Krishnamurti says, it is what I am telling. So test it, go into it, find out for yourself. Yeah, again, I am quoting Krishnamurti. If you accept this, then you become a disciple. Then you become something utterly useless. Quote ends. This is 23rd July 1978. Here, Krishnamurti says, once you become a disciple, then you become something utterly useless. This is what we are, because we are habituated. We are in our genes. Is it there in our genes to accept what others say out of reverence or out of love? And with our assumption that Krishnamurti or others are masters are great persons and they are saints, we cannot question them, we cannot doubt them, we have to accept as they are, and we become a disciple. And here Krishnamurti says, and you become utterly useless. Then last one I'm quoting, I will finish it there. So finally, in one such instance, on 26th July 1973, in Sanan again, Krishnamurti is telling, you can, I am quoting Krishnamurti, you can test this for yourself. If you don't test it, you have no right to listen to it. It has no meaning. Quote ends. So what more we can expect from Krishnamurti? But the previous speaker was telling, there is nobody in the world who were able to see what Krishnamurti says. How can we come to such a conclusion?
There's some problem with your audio, Mr. Rajendran.
There's nobody in the world who understood what Krishnamurti says. So let us not come to any such a sweeping statements and all these things. So what I'm trying to say is, experimenting or testing it out, you can, whatever words you like, you can just substitute it. That is the only way. Do it, try it. For example, Krishnamurti says thought has no place in relationship. In the psychological world, that has no place. So if you accept this as this is a sayings of some sacred man, and then it's of no use to us. It may be truth. It may be a truth for that sacred man, but for us it is nothing. It has. So we cannot just by accepting it's not going to help us. So we can, what I'm suggesting, we can test this statement that has no place in relationship in our day-to-day life, because our life is relationship. We can test this. Okay, sir. That's all. Thank you.
Shakti ji, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. With Krishnamurti, it is difficult to say that I cannot change. What one can say is, what I can say is that it seems that I don't want to change. So the responsibility is on me. And Krishnamurti is talking about being with what is, not to go with what should be, what has been. And those what has been, what should be, they are so attractive. They are my conditionings. And I remember one line of Mirza Ghalib, ईमा मुझे रोके है जो खींचे है मुझे कुफ्र. So I see it's to unlearn is important, and as other friends said, testing out, that is important. But there is something which I am not doing what I can do. And what is that? Is I have to answer it to myself. Everybody has to answer to himself. बस कृष्णमूर्ति उस बात की गुंजाइश नहीं रहने देते कि नहीं ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता. कितना हम उसमें, how much priority one has about this thing, that is the basic question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shakti ji. Yes, Mr. Pradeep Verma. Yes, sir.
Sir, good evening, friends. He is talking of total transformation and not of partial changes in our daily life. As Harshad ji was taking that once you get it and this thing, then you can see changes here and there. He's talking of total transformation, and word total sounds very difficult and impractical to all of us, the life we live. Of course, this question, why I haven't changed, is not my question. Like many of the borrowed things we debate on, this is not my question anyway. Suppose I am listening with the goal of changing myself, that listening itself is distorted and distracted. Here he has carefully used the word selfish and not self, which we have been using so loosely, ready to butcher the self that has the ability to be attended with summation of whole energy, apparently. So this selfish, I can understand. Self is not the real problem. Now, this is a beautiful visual, a very good visual. What I learned through visuals, I share with you how masters share with us the whole body language changes. Can we see those changes, the body language, you see? How passion and intensity can change the contour of our face as if energy will burst out of the part where it is centered. Have you seen when he's talking and the intensity and the energy virtually bursting out? So, and contour and these things, if we use that same intensity again and again, then they make permanent changes in our body. You see, somebody, Shakti ji was talking about this Mirza Ghalib. There is one share, after seeing JK talking, eyes have bulged. You see, there is a share, रंगों में दौड़ने फिरने के हम नहीं कायल, जो आंख ही से न टपका तो लहू क्या है. You can see when he's talking and see the whole body, you can see the intensity with which he is trying to convey or share with us. Then simple thing is, as long as self, individual self, of course, is there in any form, total change is not possible. But if intensity of inquiry has absorbed little self into realization of the state of not knowing, you see, then that intensity will affect the transformation, may affect. So it's not that difficult. Probably what meaning we got from what he says, total transformation. In a moment, in a changing world, when the things are changing every moment, every minute, you can talk of whether the changes are not there in the mind, the psyche. You see, commensurate changes are not there. When the things are changing out, what type of totality, although I can understand what Harshad ji was emphasizing on, He was talking of freedom. Yes, yes, that is an important thing. That is definitely a very important thing to see or to listen anything comprehensively, holistically. One has to be definitely free. This sounds very good and it does help. It is quite natural in some people. I've seen, I become vacant in the morning and again things come to me, and then selectively, voluntarily or involuntarily, I get those things, they be with me. I so manan karke, then we can see what remains in that psyche. And again, it should in the sense, it is a blessing if it becomes again vacant. Then neither you carry on with those hurts, nor you carry on with the reactions you had yesterday, debate and all that. So this is my experiences. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Verma sir. Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Ramarao first. Yes, Mr. Ramarao, please.
Sir, I like to share a few thoughts on the topic.
Yes, yes.
I see this manifestation come into the picture with a lot of conditioning or habits which moves circles. That is the facts to me. And it clearly understood that whatever effort I make, it makes complicated and it makes more cumbersome. So slowly what happens, this effort, this change, it means like this force has reduced. That is given lot of freedom, lot of energy. I don't know with that freedom or energy, what it happens, it happens. My thoughts are over.
Thank you, Mr. Ramarao. Thank you. Yes, Prasad sir.
Sir, this topic is very puzzling. I'm sorry, sir, I am getting a phone. I will just...
Yeah, sure.
Sir, this topic is very puzzling. For one thing, supposing I have changed. A person who is conscious that he has changed.
Not changed.
Has not changed.
As Pradeep has said. I mean, how do you know that you have changed? A person who is humble, who is conscious that of his humility, he is not humble. Like that, if somebody has changed, and if he is aware that he has changed, it means possibly he has not changed. And sir, another thing, what is this constant, like a dog playing with its bone? What is this constant occupation with this concept of transformation? What is this transformation? And then this transformation, we are making it into two distinct types: partial transformation and total transformation. What is this total transformation? From where has it come? It is like that enlightenment. You know, what is enlightenment? What is enlightenment about? Who is to be enlightened? So these questions are all there. And so far as you live your life happily, without conflict, without hating anybody, that is enough. You have changed possibly. But even then, my point is, if you are aware, I am not hating anybody. If I am aware like that, possibly there is still hatred in me. If I say I respect Christians and Muslims as much as I do Hindus, it means still there is some distinction in my mind. That is why I am going into all this. So my Krishnamurti, if somebody has heard him for 20 years, without his knowledge, he must have changed. Even if he thinks he has not changed, possibly he has changed. So let us not, I mean, if I claim I have changed, it means it is insulting myself or insulting Krishnamurti. If I say I have heard him for 20 years or 30 years and I have changed, it is a very, very tall claim and a stupid claim. I don't want to make any, I don't respect anybody who makes a claim that I have changed. We have not changed. I mean, we have changed possibly, but we should not, you know, rich people, they don't claim that they are very rich. I am from income tax and nobody comes to us and tells us I am very rich guy. You know, he may go somewhere else and claim that he is very rich. So like that, I mean, there is no point at all, sir, in claiming that we have changed by reading Krishnamurti. And what is this constant, you know, preoccupation with that idea? You read Krishnamurti, you enjoy him. I mean, we know we are not up to his mark in the sense that he can describe a morning or a leaf or a flower or a cloud or whatever so beautifully. We enjoy it. That is all we can do and we have to do. We don't have to try to get his flowery language or his perceptions or anything like that. We are not comparing ourselves with anybody. Not we are ourselves. We live our, and we are not always aware. We are not occupied with that idea that I have to change, and all that. And sir, another thing, human mind is one, they say. How do I change without my changing everybody else? Conceptually, how is that possible? You are contributing to the thought of humanity. You are contributing. You are sharing in that. And how do you change without everybody else changing? These are some of my ideas, sir. Thank you, sir.
May I say something? Dubeji?
Yes, Harshad bhai,
Please go ahead.
I'll
Yeah.
take a minute, tell a story, and then I'll ask you to say something.
Okay.
I remember reading somewhere that a person went to Ramana Maharshi and said, "Sir, what you are talking is too difficult for me to understand. But Bhakti Marg is very easy for me. I have surrendered completely to the God, and I don't look at anything else. Everything I see is God." Then he asked him, "But in this position, can I see God?" He said, "Yes, you can." Then he said, "Can I go to God and talk to him?" He said, "Yes, you can go to God and talk to him." Then he asked, "And what will God ask me?" Then Ramana Maharshi said, "He will tell you to go and find out who am I." So I think it's important for us to stay where we are. And I think Prasad sir has said everything. I don't need to repeat it. Yes, Harshad bhai.
Yes. One professor had come to Krishnaji and he said to Krishnaji that I have studied your teachings for 30 years, but I have not moved. That means I have not changed. And Krishnaji says, you have not moved because you have not stopped. So it is looks like very paradox. But what Krishna ji is saying that you have gathered a lot of knowledge, and but you have not stopped, means you have not become silent and looked at your own mind what is happening. Because when we become silent, then whatever is happening can be seen exactly as it is, and that brings some kind of change. So that is one thing. And other thing, people who really want this freedom, they do get it if they have the tremendous passion, energy for this. And Kabir said, "Jisko pana hai Kabir, usko mil jayega Kabir." So that is one thing. And how do we know that if something has changed within us? It's like when we are carrying a lot of burden, and we may not be aware that we are carrying that burden, and we think that everybody is carrying the burden, so it is a normal situation. But one day, when that burden goes away, and then we say, oh, there is a different way of living, different way of looking, listening. And so when such a thing happens, then a person knows that something new has happened. And what is called enlightenment, it means that we become very light, not very heavy, with carrying a lot of problem, and our mind becomes free to observe things in nature. It becomes free to look at what is happening within us, a kind of choiceless, effortless awareness comes in our life, and that makes our life very creative, happy, healthy, and we don't create problems for ourselves. And if there is any problem like anger or fear coming, we can really see that it is arising because there is this ongoing, effortless, choiceless awareness going, and that is a real freedom. And the people who have got this, they will say, yes, it is possible. Only one has to really work for it. It doesn't come. One has, if that is the main important thing in one's life, more than making money or becoming famous or all that. So our whole energy then will be directed at what is happening. And then initially it may be very exhausting, but after some time, without effort, one can look at a tree or listen to a song without this interpretation and the previous knowledge coming into existence. So that is why Krishna ji was asking even little children, how do you look at a tree? How do you look at the face of a human being, your friend or husband or wife? So there is something there, a real beauty of looking, listening exists. But as long as we have not felt it, then we will say that this is just an ideal. So it is not an ideal. It is possible for people who want to give their whole energy to it. Okay, I finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshad. Yes, Shakti ji, please unmute.
Yes, sir. You see, this total transformation, I respect it, but I don't feel like I don't say it is an approach which is not right. But when I listen to the word change, I feel it is like changing the way I have been living in unawareness, living, that sort of thing. And everybody paraphrases Krishnamurti's invitation in his own words. And for example, he's telling me to observe the outside world, the trees, as Harshad Parekh ji said, other things outside, and also observe my fear, my boredom, observe my drive of pleasure, observe my thoughts and feelings, and also notice the movement of non-observation. So this has been the invitation. And now what happens that understanding it and then I slip into the non-observation mode. It remains unnoticed. Later on, afterthought comes the oh. So this type of problems, they arise, and one feels one is responsible for that. So about that change I was talking about. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shakti ji. We'll take the last comment from Mr. Pradeep Verma. Yes, Verma sir.
Sir, yes, sir. This is just a small response after listening to Prasad Mulupuri ji, that if I say I have changed, I have not changed, or he has not changed. He says he has not changed. Most of the changes are behavioral. In behavior, they are visible changes. And they can be seen by the person himself, what was he, and what he has become. And others also acknowledge it. Look, Pradeep, you are not that. So most of the habits, if you see it properly, if you can see it, see the power of seeing, if you see them, then automatically you're out of that conflict. I myself was a smoker for quite some time. So like that, a number of changes most of the changes are visible, and I don't need a certificate from second, third person, whether I have changed or not. You see? So this is neither an insult to me, nor to anyone. Even friends know it. My peer group knows it very well. Where do I change and what it does to me in feelings and emotions? So this is all what I say, because I know that JK said somewhere, if someone claims, that word claim here is difficult. The claim, that is, a condensed self. I am now a changed person, then it is a different thing. You don't have to claim it, but this is like that. Changes are very visible, and the whole behavior changes after seeing of course, in freedom, if you see it, things do happen, and you don't have to claim that the order takes you to that. Then you say, yeah, this is this. So thank you very much. Dubeji, thank you.
Thank you, Verma sir. Thank you. We have 2 minutes, so we can take Dinesh Waghmare's comments or questions. Yes, Dinesh ji.
I would also like to make comment on Prasad sir's statement. Here in this video itself, JK has clearly said, if the intelligence is working, it will work in your daily life, it will work in your office. Even it can work before the event takes place. So on that also one should give time and should work on that. I'm sorry, I'm not becoming personal, but this is just my suggestion to all, and including myself, that we should also see each and every word of and listen each and every word of JK, which is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Waghmare ji. Thank you. I think, friends, we have come to the end of the session now. Next Sunday, we have Mr. S. Gopalan. As you have heard him many times, he is associated with Valley School, and he is going to talk to us on last thought and next birth validation from J. Krishnamurthy. So it's on 25th December at 11 a.m. Please do join us. And 1st of January, we will not have any session, being the first day of the year. So it's a holiday, as Jan Saab wants it. So thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.